Welcome to The Trade. This is your host, Theo Goodman. I'm here with George Samman. How's it going today, George?
It's going well, thanks. How about you?
Pretty well, thanks. So we had, the non-farm payroll numbers last week, and I believe this week there's a lot of data events coming up. There's Draghi is going to talk, and there's going to be some other pretty big, significant numbers coming up. What do you have to show us today?
Yeah, I'm going to start off with Bitcoin, which I haven't talked about in a while. And the reason why is because I've noticed lately how the volume has tapered off dramatically. And as a result of that, the Bollinger Bands have tightened as well. So volatility is at really, really low levels. And in fact, the volume is at below its 52-week moving average. So I'm anticipating a big move to happen one way or the other very soon. I'm not predicting which way the move is going to happen. I mean, right now, Bitcoin still seems to be bullish, but there's no real catalyst for it to move. The only thing that I see here is that it's getting really tight in a volatility way where something is going to happen. And if we look at China too, this is a OK coin. Look at how the volume has fallen off in the last few sessions. It's way below its 52-week moving average after we've been talking about for a while. China's really been the big driver of the price and the volume in the price over the last month since October, November. And here's even a weekly chart. The volume has fallen off dramatically. The 52-week moving average of volume is very low. So volume is just not there anymore. So that's become interesting. And like I said, all these the moving averages and the bands are squeezing together. So expect something to happen soon. This is Ether, and it's still in a really bullish pattern. It's kind of getting choppy and consolidating in here, really range bound. RSI is starting to move a bit lower, as is the MACD. It's flattening out. So again, less volatility and a lot less volume as well. I think that you'll probably get a move. There's some support down around 1020 and then down in the 880 area. So probably it remains bullish until not, and those are areas to buy in. It hasn't gone below its 200-day on the 4-hour in a very, very long time. So that's been really big support and continues to be. So here's the S&P, and it's had a monster move and continues higher. We've got a bullish engulfing here, and it's finally getting into this last gap area. We're right there. And if it breaks through there, it's going to test the old highs for sure. We are a little oversold on the RSI here, but you're seeing a lot of bullish activity. Like look at the moving averages here. They're starting to cross over, and they're all starting to slope upward. So getting above, not far from here, 2080, 2079, and there's no reason not to be bullish. Right now, obviously, that's going to be a bit of resistance, but everything looks like it's going towards higher moves in the S&P. You might get some consolidation first, but we'll see. This is the VIX, and the VIX continues lower and lower. It put in a bearish engulfing, which means it probably goes lower from here. But you should note that if you look back to the March area, we're back at levels where we saw a big spike in volume. In volatility. So that could potentially happen again here. Right now, though, it looks like it wants to go lower. And again, VIX is compressing. That's good for the S&P and for all risk-on assets. So I put here the biotech, which is a risk-on trade, and it is starting to get bullish again as well. It's recaptured the 50-day. RSI is moving up, and this is all symptoms of risk back on. Same here for the Russell 2000. Hit resistance right up here. There's a gap. If it gets through this gap at 112, even getting above this 111 area, but risk is back on. Obviously, it's in a position where the MACD is really elevated, but again, these are all bullish signs for the market in general. US dollar is another reason why the market's been going higher. Fed's been talking it down, and we've talked about this for weeks now. Reason why is it helps other markets out, and the Fed has also said that they're not going to raise rates as many times as people initially thought at the beginning of the year was going to be 2. Maybe it might not even be that. So we have some support at the 118 level, then below that down at the 117 level, but obviously the dollar is being talked down and being driven down by Fed speak and the fact that rates don't look like they're going to rise like people thought they were. And obviously this has been really good for the euro, which is about to go into big resistance at the 114 area. And again, we're seeing these bullish crossovers in the moving averages. We are at levels where it is getting to an oversold point. So it could consolidate here and the dollar can move higher at some point. But I mean, again, these currencies are starting to look better versus USD. Here is the yen USD, same real scenario here. It gets above 0.8975, then you're up at then the next resistance going back a few years is 0.91, and that's probably where it heads if the dollar continues to weaken and the risk on trade continues. Again, like you said, the BOJ is coming up, so BOJ, so we'll see what they have to say. Here is the Aussie dollar, and same things happening here as well. Getting bullish against the US dollar, and the moving averages are moving into a bullish position as well. So things have changed for sure with the US dollar versus all other currencies. But this is more of a Fed move than anything else, and even versus the yuan as well, as we see here. So yuan was supposed to keep rising and rising versus the US dollar, and in fact, it's not been devaluing, it's been increasing in value. But we might get a chance here with the Chinese economy beginning to show some signs of recovery for them to start devaluing again. And that could be maybe bullish for Bitcoin. But we're not seeing any volume anywhere in the Bitcoin space, not even out of China. So it's kind of interesting. However, I do think the yuan starts to get devalued again under the cover of Fed and US dollar. And this is the Shanghai. It's moved up again as well. RSI is bullish. It still has a lot of resistance right in this level, right above where we are now in this 3170 area, and then all the way up to 3264. But again, global markets are starting to rise again, and that's always a good thing for risk on. Here is oil. Got a massive move. A lot of it's dollar related, but now the dollar keeps falling and oil is not going up. It's going down. So that was probably a counter trend rally in oil, and it got right up into big resistance in the 42 level. And now it's back to a critical area, 36, where if it doesn't hold, it probably falls down to 34. And this is happening in all the commodities. Here's copper, same exact thing in a big critical area here, bounced off big support. So I guess the next moves will depend on what happens with global economy as far as improvement goes, the US dollar weakening, and maybe demand picking up and some inflation picking up, which we still haven't seen yet. And this is the final chart I'll show, which is the 10-year. So obviously with rates not anticipated to rise as fast as people thought, it's fallen off again, and inflation expectations are still really low. So, as far as things are going, the non-farm payrolls and all these other things you mentioned, yeah, they're very good. If we start to see wages start to increase, then you can really start to see inflation expectations increase. Potentially that puts the Fed in a position where they might have to raise, even though they don't want to. But again, they have reasons to now, and they're holding off because of weakness in the global economy in general. And I think, too, they just want to talk the dollar down as long as they can before they do raise rates again. And that's all I have for today.
Okay. Well, yeah, the dollar did go up for a long time, it's the index. So now that it's going down a little, that seems normal after that run. What do you think the BOJ is going to do? Anything? They're just going to kind of wait and see, like everyone else, what the Fed is doing, or you think they're going to do give us a surprise?
I think they have to do something. The economic numbers out of Japan are just dire, and the yen going up is really hurting them. They want the yen to weaken because they want their exports to be competitive worldwide, and that's not happening. So what you're seeing is that BOJ is basically buying all the equities and ETFs and anything they could get their hands on, but it's not helping. I think they have to do something in the fact of going more and more negative on the rates. That's the only real tools they have left in the box, even though they say they have others. But they need to do something to shock the yen down, and that's one thing that they certainly can do.
Okay, definitely. Well, here we have on my screen the DAX, the German 30, and it moves generally opposite of the euro move. So we've seen with the weakening dollar, we've seen a stronger euro, and it hasn't been able to push over this 10,000 level. And then on On Friday, it did drop out of this consolidation area. Now, I'm still not totally convinced it's going to really sell off. If we look here, it is at even though it did fall out of that box and it is a pretty significant area, it's still above the daily Ichimoku. So if it just consolidates right where it is and kind of goes sideways, even more consolidation, then it still could hit over to 10,000. But that pretty much depends on the euro, because if the euro goes up, then the DAX tends to go down, because the perception is, for exports, people want cheap euro, and that's what fueled a lot of the run to 11,000 as far as the DAX. And okay, I've also got gold. So just like you brought up with some of the other commodities, it's at a critical level. It's sitting on this trend line. It broke out of a longer trend line, in my opinion, but there's this other shorter term trend line that's a few months old. It's sitting right on it, and you've got the 26 day lagging line, this green line right here, in the price. So that just means more consolidation, more choppiness until that goes above or below the past price. It also has not been able to get above that red line, the Kijun-sen, and that would be pretty important for it to do if it wants to continue to go up. Otherwise, I think on the downside, it could, if it does break down, it could test 1100, and then let's see if it tests this other longer term trend line here at the weekly. So you can see it's right there on, pretty much sitting on this shorter term trend line, and then the long term trend line. Theoretically, it could go down there and test it. Okay, let's take a look over at, actually, I've got Litecoin over here, which I showed last week, and here's the weekly, and it's also sitting on this trend line. I mean, you can see higher lows definitely on the weekly, but on the daily, that same trend line right there. But if you zoom in on the daily, if the daily closes like this, that's not really the best, but it could also just close with a wick, like you see all of these candles touching that line. It just means that line is very significant. So unless we see a real clear break of that line, I would expect it to continue just to kind of consolidate around that line. Again, the 26-day lagging line, the green one right here, is also in the cloud and in the price. Just means more consolidation, choppiness, and compression, like we've seen with Bitcoin. All right, moving over to Bitcoin. Here's the weekly. Also, like George was saying, a lot of compression, low volatility. What I still do like, though, is lagging line above cloud, and the Kijun-sen is kind of sloping up. You can see before it was really flat. So it is kind of a delayed lagging indicator, but that's actually pretty positive. And if we did have a sell-off, I would expect it to sell off somewhere near that red line right there, the Kijun-sen. Over at the daily, yeah, daily looks like a mess. Just total choppiness, nothing real interesting happening. Yeah, you did have a few days at the beginning of the week, some up and down moves, but after that, nothing real exciting. And again, the lagging line and the cloud are telling us that this is just really choppy. A lot of mixed signals in the daily cloud is just a do not trade kind of signal. Lagging line in the price, nothing really interesting there, just more compression. And maybe you're right, George, that it is gearing up for some kind of move. I mean, we've been sitting up in this range between under 3,000 yuan and above 2,400 yuan for a good amount of time. So, coming into the halving and all the expectations regarding it, I think that we will see some kind of move up or down pretty soon. All right, well, that's all we have for today. Thanks for watching The Trade. Make sure to subscribe to this channel, World Crypto Network. Also, make sure to check us out on Twitter. You can follow George on Twitter. Check the link in the description. You can follow me on Twitter. Check the link in the description. Also, check us out on bitcoin.com. Thanks a lot for watching, and talk to you next time.